my name is Brother K. Brothers and sisters in the flesh and in the flesh, for the moment deign to accept my greetings and my blessings. Silence, I am speaking today in my turn, to complete, to my way, what was said concerning the sacred masculine and its effects and its manifestations. There are many years, I had the opportunity to talk to them at length, image and vision. Further, many stars came to specify what was the sight of the heart, the inner vision, the different types of vision. Then I told them at length of autonomy and freedom. Today, I come to express the expected results of the emergence of the sacred masculine communion, somehow, with the sacred feminine, which leads to the manifestation of primordial androgyny in your inner being and its manifestation in this world. The sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, when they are in harmony and no longer separate, as was the case in this world, open us, within themselves, the possibility of moving the conditions attached to their apparent sex, their expressed polarities, male or female, and leads, in turn, an important modification of its human behavior. Many of you, of course, already lived without necessarily there to put words or explanations. Alchemy and the male sublimation and the sacred feminine translate, if not already done, by a precise word, which is called the grace. The benevolence is not solely love in incarnation or emanated love you, but, much more, alchemy of the notion of welcome, listening and emission, which allows you to fall, somehow, the last barriers between the sense of being an identity and, in every relationship, to deal with another entity. The primordial androgyny is located directly in the processes lived a few years ago, of consciousness itself, named communion, merger or bilication and dissociation, and dissolution. The male benevolence and the sacred feminine gives them, in fact, the ability to be, also, friend, lover, mistress, mother, son, father, abolishing thereby numerous social roles and numerous functions, whether they are related to sexuality, reproduction, but also the way you interact in this world. This element named the grace will allow them to amplify and see, perhaps sharper and more intense, which may remain in you, than has been named the infernal triad executioner, victim and savior, which leads them through triunity archangelic and the sacred feminine triunity, to replace to this grace. And leave the set of interactions that are at the level of the personalities present in every relationship, which does not freeze over, than in a paper or a behavioral way, but that opens here, too, ever more spontaneity, the flow of love that flows into words, expressions in emotions as in thought, in every relationship. The salient effect of masculinity or femininity seems, if not already done, fade in you, which gives the man a capacity to host a listening capacity different than it is in men's nature. In the female nature is not solely the expression of conscious co-creation becomes evident, but there is, moreover, a new behavioral ability to be in action and not in the reaction. Primordial androgyny install an emptiness and at the same time, fullness, one deriving from another. There is therefore disappearance of behavioral sex bias, which opens thus the door of innocence and childhood. It is no longer the case. In grace there is the wonder. In grace and primordial androgyny's spontaneity, there is evidence and there is ease. So therefore, you have found, perhaps, or will realize very quickly their way relationship, as well as their way of interaction between you and the rest is modified in a tangible and visible way, which puts them in a form of polarity of neutrality and therefore that reunites in you, the two parties that had been separated, left right, good bad, men and women, giving them the clarity to act, to receive, to give and to live what is to live according to their vibrational assignment, that specific purpose of ancient times. This can be reflected in you, important capabilities named mediumship, a greater capacity to receive and to see the people of nature, to talk to them in different ways, which gives them to do also with compassion, the deviations of every situation, both in you and the other without judgment but with love, which seems to sometimes give them a sharper and clearer discrimination between what is the realm of eternal light and what is not. Reintegration of their sacred poles, and the sublimation of them in primordial androgyny puts an end to the feeling of separation. Of course, before this is completely updated, can exist in each one of you, past resurgences of this life as the expression of its intrinsic nature, male or female, but they are seen here, too, clearly and with kindness. Of course, This leads also in a sense of unity and livelier unification, stronger, more intense, abolishes also the barriers no longer solely social, but linked to age, sex or the constraints or the own conditions of their sociability. Thus, each of you is capable of being challenged, the intelligence of light, to express love, of course, and grace, in every relationship. No, to not see, but, on the contrary, to see accurately and with love what needs to be seen, though, both in you and others. This also allows that time, the issue of love and intelligence of love spread from the center of his chest, over all relationship, and regardless of their intellect, regardless of your ideas, your thoughts, and even the own situation. That is, I would say, an octave higher than it had been expressed a few months ago concerning this. Compassion and forgiveness, coupled to love, is a spatial resolution of every relationship, both in you and in the outside, that opens more and more, the intelligence of light, the intelligence of love, to peace and joy. What is fortifying somehow, innocence, spontaneity, humility and simplicity. What was also unclear can sometimes be illuminated violently in every relationship, I repeat, with yourself or your exterior. The fire of love, then, at that time, transmute, if I can say for yourself, effortlessly and without intellect, there is also transmute, in every kind of relationship. The sacred masculine does not come solely complete the sacred feminine, but comes alchemised himself, to leave hatch, somehow no longer solely the vibration of which was named the 12th body or primordial androgyny, but rather updating androgynous, even in this world, those specific times of the earth. The absence of sexual behavior differentiation, if I may say, in any case, linked to sex and sex, to sexual intercourse, will translate to a greater ability to understand what you name the opposite sex, to him living the feelings, behavioral modes and also, I would say, modes of spiritual expression. Seen with a critical eye, typical of the third dimension, it could be stated as the man becomes woman and the woman becomes the man, but this is only an appearance. The primordial androgyny will magnify, somehow, the manifestation of their unity in every relationship and every presentation of his being, in every circumstance of this world. Appears, increasingly, a sense of fluidity in every relationship, even if it has need to complete or build up, so nothing changes. As perhaps you have already observed, it becomes increasingly easy to accept the other, whatever he says, in any way he is presented, which gives them, then access to a larger unit and a relationship settles, more easily, heart to heart, and ignores conventions and differences, whatever they are, and opens them, so here, too, to the concrete and tangible manifestation of the effects of unconditional love in their lives. I repeat, you can go through a delicate phase in which there is as an accentuation of some anomalies already experienced by you in relationships. It's just a new lighting that comes, somehow, put the light that had not been also put in light both of you as the other. There is a greater capacity to understand, I would say, beyond words, to see beyond what is given to see, always there too, without trial, without conviction, but with compassion and charisma. Compassion and charisma illuminated by the light of androgyny, the primordial light before the polarization, whether the male-female, light and shadow in the most trivial and ordinary events of their lives. The manifestation of primordial androgyny, beyond simply the body and vibration, will give them to adjust to increasingly thin, that benevolence. Even if you can pass in you, by feeling sometimes anger, which makes them believe that you accept what seemed to them unacceptable, it's not that. It is indeed a pacification all relationships taken both inside and outside of you. When this is seen in every relationship settles peace, installs also the freedom of the relationship and the autonomy of each relationship in which no more predation can be exercised in one way or another. The relationship will become, so balance, which amplifies peace and therefore the unit, experience, real and concrete. So regardless of all vibratory manifestation and regardless even of all subtle perception of any nature whatsoever. The grace, as you will realize, if not already done, nourishes your heart and nourishes the fire of the heart, allowing them to experience at the same time, a lightness and a release that weighed them. The benevolence of primordial androgyny, this alchemy of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, gives them also to express joy, ever more clearly, whether quiet or exuberant, it will be active, regardless of their will, regardless of your thoughts and what it seemed, even to resist in any relationship. It can be said, in short, that every relationship, whatever it is, will become love, both in you and in every person that you are led to see, in an exceptional way or every day. The grace and peace will be held all communication. Retain, however, that the time to adjust to this grace, which is performed effortlessly by the intelligence of light in the current times, is perhaps the first, destabilizing, the contrast between you and the world environment that resists, in the course of some relationships that should be built or finished. But this will be done throughout freedom in complete independence, and the result, of course, will always love greater amplitude and a more stable amplitude peace. For those of you living the vibrations, you realize clearly the activation of this 12th body joint to the 11th body, that is, the word creator. You will become so real and totally, the word, or whatever the words, they will not be carried solely by the sense understandable, but much more by the power of the word, which puts an end, progressive or brutally, to all forms of incomprehension of you or any external relation. What may, at first time, seem to them shocking, if you already live, will become, very quickly, fluid and easy. It is in this context that you will come out in some way, the spontaneous and automatic judgment in the face of every situation or every being, or against themselves, which seeks the separation, make them put always the question, even unconsciously, of good and evil, the benefit or loss caused by every relationship within themselves or on the outside. This benevolence, therefore, will be expressed through the spontaneity and the real ability to let go of you, not the right word, but the correct word, whatever the word used. You will notice, too, in every relationship, both inside of you like on the outside, the silence will become an essential element, much more than words, much more than body expressions and more than any value judgment. It will then be possible, both in you and in your outside living, really, the primary unit that passes, somehow the usual rules of communication, both in love language and the social language, as in adapted to a demand language, an information, a service or a sale. You will realize then that grace and that spontaneity, that you found on the outside, the same smile and the same peace will be present without looking for it, effortlessly and regardless of any relationship. There is the tangible manifestation of life and unconditional love. This has been available to them, for many of you, through the mechanisms named grace, but today it is more than grace. Because in grace is not only the host of grace or the manifestation of grace, but there is spontaneous emission of grace in every circumstance. You will realize then that his gestures, his words, his looks will not be truly what you knew before. The sense of forgiveness will be enrolled in this androgynous grace. You will live, perhaps, increasingly often, the ability to live the ecstasy without going through an inner alignment, without going through a mystical experience, without going through a successful sexual relationship, but much more for the relationship itself. I will remember, moreover, that the very Archangel Anael is appointed the Archangel of Relationship and Love. This new communication refers to the cardiac output of love and light, and the symbiosis, if I may say, the four elements. The mechanisms then synchronized in evidence will be, if not already done, their daily lives, in increasingly apparent frequency. Seeing, therefore, these relationships turn up, both of you as on the outside, will become then easier to keep this communication mode without their pay attention, because everything will happen naturally. Item ready go that what may seem to them to resist today is precisely the illustration of what is unfolding and what's lighting up in you, not in an intellectual understanding, discriminate in good-bad, but in a more integrative view, which exceeds the usual conditions of this world, and that makes you real and concrete, pure love of beings who are not influenced by any wound, that is, for any advantage or disadvantage in any respect. You exceed it. From the moment the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine enter into symbiosis, they are overcoming their condition, so I said, and their appearance, right here in the new condition. I would be tempted to name it in its current terminology, the angel of the gaze, who is unable to make a judgment, to condemn, to discriminate, to reject. Because at that moment, you will see real and concrete, if not already done, that everything that is produced is governed by the intelligence of light. even he could, so far, seem to them opposite to the light or contrary to it. It is nothing more than a real emergency in the sensible world of manifestation in which you are. This will also effortlessly see also increasingly clearly the interactions between its eternal being and the light itself. You cannot tell if this light goes out or comes in you. The heart of the heart will be installed in the totality of his being and no more, only in some places of your heart that you know. Once there is a help boost service, listening, you can no longer consider that you are the savior and the other is the victim. You escape, so the sterility of the infernal tried and replace, in a very natural way by the triunity of the sacred feminine and the triunity archangelic, which gives you to do with pure intelligence, which does not use more to analysis or any spiritual sense. This will be evident in evidence. There will be as a break or a short rational mental circuit their usual polarities or its other usual emotions. You will realize the benefits of this, of course, in every respect, in all circumstances, but especially in their ability to make work life in you. Opinion them will then want to decide futile, want to choose, want to control whatever or whoever it is. Thus is the intelligence of the primordial androgyny, which surpassed the manifestation of duality, and not solely or vibratory energy, present in this world. You will see, therefore, clearly, in the form of a radiance of intuition, which needs to be seen, in all circumstances. You will notice, therefore, grace in action and the state of grace, not solely in you, not solely in the closest relations, but in a very general way on each occasion. This will result also in this world, for contact with the visible nature, more spontaneous. The people of not subtle nature, whatever the animals, the plants will contact you effortlessly and without wanting. This benevolence and this new communication, I repeat, it has been updated for many of you, but it will become increasingly prominent, somehow, will allow you to let love emerge, more easily, so all your actions, all your looks, your emotions or your ideas, or your still present, thought to be really, magnified by the grace of love. You will find that, more often, your reason, your mind will short circuits, even the usual things of life they need, so far, the intervention of his mind. Somehow, everything will become more fluid and all spontaneous, which contrasts more with the disorder of the world that is installed. You will not be therefore more affected by any disorder that is, which does not put them in indifference or in the distance, but rather the active participation of co-creation conscious and aware of the light action, giving them to live, somehow new octaves of grace. That's what we have developed, we Melchizedek during these chronicles of the Ascension, each in its own way, but that opens this eternal reality, right here in this world. There will be more effort to make to love, there will be more effort to do to support difficult relations with yourselves, in parts or any other. Because the other is no longer seen as the other, real and concrete. It is therefore somehow a close distance and separation, in which even the usual bodily limits or personal and usual historical limits tend to dissolve, and only leave the naked love, in which everything is done with ease. You will see, clearly, also, in itself, not a logical or memorial, or karmic link to his childhood understanding, but, much more, in the immanence of love and relationship. You will note also the effects on healing, too, of his body. You shall, in more clearly the links between the symbolic body and engrams memorials housed in this body, without having to analyze them, without having to understand the pros and cons, with short circuit, there too, the intellectual aspect, mental and reasoning. This will also, in each of you, a greater availability of the signs and thanks. If you're going to the meaning of what is produced, everything will become easy and clear, whatever joy or whatever suffering. You will become independent of the results in any field whatsoever, because they have the brilliant intuition to have really done what was to do, not by his will or his understanding, but directly by the intelligence of light, and you then notice, each time more clearly. If you acquiesce to these developments, more and more lucid and clear way, then, they will realize effectively increasing changes that can, and I take this particular image, live ecstasy simply to rediscover the smile of a child, to collect a flower, to shake the hand of a superior. Making peace will become apparent increasingly in yourself, but also to any interface. You will note, moreover, that can no longer support the minimum deviation, that benevolence, which can, for the first time, give them a sense of guilt, the archaic parts of your being that may, in some cases, try to retake the lead in the heart. This will not last, ever, even if it is intense. The superconsciousness is no longer solely an inner mechanism. It will also be visible in each and everything relationship. The unit will therefore increasingly manifestation, and you will nurture this unit before anything. So is love. So is the autonomy, and so is the real freedom, which does not depend on any circumstances or in any condition, as you know. Those who perceive the vibrations in any place, that is, begin to perceive the light streams that emanate spontaneously from your heart, about anything and about each relationship, regardless even of your thoughts, which can create in first, some distortion. For example, feel a violent rage inside him, while the heart continues to send love and peace and grace. This will take them here, too, the more clarity about the pros and cons of which was its way of operating, and what it becomes. Silence, the unit will appear no longer solely as a dream or an inner state, but a tangible reality, and this tangible reality will increasingly urgent for you, gradually, and as the bustle of the world declares itself silence, held also this androgyny primordial, a greater ability to disappear at will, to immerse yourself in the supreme peace address, regardless of any condition and of any polarity, male or female. Silence, you will live, real and concrete, that, on every occasion, in every circumstance, in every relationship, love is preliminary to anything else and is independent of you. The benevolence, finally, will solve what could look them also impassable either concern of the interior domains or some relations. This makes them, too, and so perhaps more rare at the moment, live, really, in the other, which allows live it in some way, from the inside, which ends here, too, not the relationship but repeals, somehow, the sense of being a person in the face of another person, whatever the type of relationship. Christ had said, "What you do to the least of you, it's me you do." This will become, for you, evidence, and this is already underway. You will realize for themselves that they hurt someone, is to yourself that hurt and no one else, highlighting an aspect perhaps more pleasant. We told our commander, concerning this phrase, it is the one that says it is. Which gives them see that what manifests in your life today, in any industry it is only the reflection, ultimately, its interior is not yet manifested in its fullness. This will also allow more incisively put an end to the distance between the other and you, between the enemy and you, because there is no enemy, and if the enemy is manifested, is that it is first in you, and nothing can come from the outside, in that you understand the commonly. You will have the opportunity, and perhaps have already done so, check it in increasingly numerous circumstances which, a priori, would have nothing to do with what you nominate spirituality. No more, indeed, the material and the spiritual, no more than a single life, despite the confusion of the world. All of this is developing, this very moment, and has already begun for some of you, so perhaps not as clear as it is, what makes them discover, this time, not the abandonment to the light, but the abandonment to grace, which shows them that there is no place to worry about whatever it is, if not maintain, of course, correctly, your physical vehicle, according to their needs and not those of your head needs or their wishes. If I take the example of what you nominate food, you no longer have to put the issue before any food is, but his body will respond to the nature of food, the amount of food and the time of their food. You break, so the latest rules constraints of his own body, which makes it thus uninfluenced and taxes recorded in the memory of mankind. It seems to me, moreover, that the commander said, very recently, what he named the dry fasting for 24 hours, for example. What, so far, could make them put the question in the face of an event, the light or not, will not touch them even more, because they then become apparent to you that grace is at work, and what want to unwind, you can nothing there. In this form of trust, this abandonment to grace, the unit becomes more palpable and tangible, more manifest and increasingly evident. This will lead them, to, as I said, the episodes of destruction that will not fall more abruptly, as was the case for years, but that will not produce when you have so decided, but when the time is propitious, and always in enabling circumstances for you. so are the various manifestations of primordial androgyny, right here in this world. Other needs, so far physiological or behavioral, will disappear under your eyes, your physical appearance may even change up, now, but you will see clearly at any modification that is, the effect of grace and abandonment to grace. This is, somehow, not a preparation, but the update and the manifestation of him coming as a thief in the night. Silence, his conscience then become free will, is no longer subject to previous conditionings, which are accompanied by an even greater joy and a lightness ever more present. Silence, that's what you will see, too, work in some countries, in some moves that will emerge spontaneously, as we name the people. There is as a way of awakening a lethargy output. Even if, for these brothers and sisters, there is a sense of duty to strive to achieve something, you will see this clearly and accept all manifestations of grace, even if it passes by violence at the level of people. Because you will see, beyond appearances, there is a release that occurs at that moment, for these beings. All this is intended, of course, to facilitate every day a little more, for the whole team, the establishment of stasis. There will be also a contaminating effect, of course, next, where you will see brothers and sisters meet with change objectives, revolt or revolution, war or peace. Even if this may seem strange, you will see the end, and its unique look, devoid of judgment, feed, somehow these groups to enable them to transmute this new vitality, this new awakening and access to eternity. In fact, in this period, you will find that more and more brothers and sisters who are going to change in any way, paradigm, instantly, without even knowing why. Because they will cross then the intolerable threshold of separation and division in this world. Even if there is violence in what you see, this violence is only temporary and is only the manifestation of the Spirit's call and the call of Christ, whatever the words are used. This corresponds also to what is named the spring season, in which he was hiding out on earth, finally, the sunlight and manifests. You clearly experience that there are less and less effort to do to keep somehow, his superconsciousness. It will be independent of the circumstances of the relationship as the world's events, and it will be increasingly established. Primordial androgyny, the primary unit will then be in full manifestation. All this seems to them, even if amplifying and accelerating every day, both in you and outside of you. All this is inscribed in the humanity of the shock of the process and that they were developed by Sri Aurobindo long. You will therefore be increasingly available for life and not solely for your little pleasures or desires, even spiritual. You will become the Son of Man, the living one who concludes his confinement cycle. They retain, however, that it can go through upwelling of anger, violence, sadness, before joy germinates. Progressively, and as you settle in this new state, if I may say, right here on earth will see that you are free, free thought, free of emotions, free of everything. For some of you, it may be shocking not experience the past emotions or no longer work in the same way to the level of their intelligence. Grace takes truly assumes the manifestation of his life in this world. Silence, the collective capacity of human resilience will be much stronger as the excitement increases because, somehow, as it is known in the incarnation, is in adversity that mutual help and compassion manifest themselves more easily. You will note, everywhere around you and everywhere in the world, a greater willingness to meet, to talk to have new dreams that no longer have any relation to predation and competition, but much more, with mutual help and love. Remember that everyone is free to express this new blow, as their vibrational assignment, even if some of you are not aware of any purpose of these events and what they translate, deeply, about the rise of this world. Silence. For many of you love is not an empty word or something that is sought, but you the experience directly. I hope, through my intervention, have been able to give some guidance elements in what might remain of his person, which leads progressively or in a stunning way, the change point of view. It is a radical change for many of you, that emerges, and allows, there also fit the closest to what you are. Silence. I thank you and I give thanks for your listening, for your host. And I give thanks also to the intelligence of the light which enables us right here, how to read me, live it. Indeed, for each of you, with your own strength. Let me contribute to them, and this is my way to greet them and tell them you soon, the blessings of the heart. Silence. I am Brother K and I salute them.